That chance is now a guarantee. Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Replay Mega Man Battle Network 2. 390 Special is here, and it's time for us to go finish off not only the post-game, but Battle Network 2 in general. I said there was a chance of us doing that last time if memory serves, and well, that chance came true. Starting off here in World 3 Area 2, we got ourselves the final in the Magnet Bomb enemy line, the Magnoids. They move a bit slower, I think, than the version 2s, but they are made up for the fact by their Magnet Bomb now covering a full plus shape when they shoot it. And that can stun you in place long enough for the Scuttle line enemies that you can run into around here get genuinely very dangerous, so you need to really try and take them out as quickly as you can. But the life auras around here make that a potential problem for the Scuttle side of things as well, so watch out for them. So, World 3 Area 2 has some potentially annoying battles, but in terms of what you're going to be fighting around here, it's all four of the Scuttle lines. Poof Balls are around here, Can Devil 3, so you can get Candle 3 around here, Magnoids. This is probably the best place in the game to fight Ratty 3s in order to get those battleships in, as well as the two program advances tied to it. But also, I brought up last time, I believe, or was it 2 parts ago, the Octovians in that entire enemy line being rare, Magma Dragons back in the apartment computer being rare. Easily the rarest encounter in the game is in this area, and it's a similar encounter to one we found back in BN1 for getting one of the hardest battleships. But I think at least the battleship is easier to get here in BN2, because now you have things like locate enemies to help get stuff around and all that jazz. We'll talk more about that in specific down the line in this video. Right there we used a purple mystery data to get the Old Wood battleship. That works like Godstone and Magma Dragon, that you need to be in front of a hole to use it, and every enemy panel will then get struck by a wood tower that gets a boosted 20 power for every grass panel on the stage. So if you use grass stage and then that, you can hit over 400 damage on every tile, no problem. For now, it's time for us to get past this door for the boss of this area. You who command Navi Legion, step forward. In order to open this door, you need to have the version 3 chip for every net Navi that's not from the World 3 area itself. The door's opening.
Visitors, how rare. You must have defeated Pharaoh Man.
Who are you?
If you're going to break in, you might try to be nicer, eh? See, it's like this. I guard Napalmman's turf. So I'm supposed to take out anyone that makes it in here.
Not that many people do make it this far. Mega Man, watch that guy.
But what's up with Pharaoh Man losing to a bunch of kids? Ah, well, this'll be fun. I need a bit of exercise anyway. Well, shall we get on with it, as they say? A battle to the death.
Lan, here he comes. Napalm Man can certainly be a chaotic fight, especially as you fight further versions of him, because you need to constantly be on the move to avoid any attacks. Because while he can obviously fire his Vulcan cannons on his arms, when you're not in the same row as him or at any point, a Vulcan cannon can show up in your row to target you directly, so you need to constantly be moving laterally and perpendicularly to wherever you're going to prevent these things from hitting you. Whenever he himself stops to attack, he's doing one of two things depending on whether or not he's above half health or not. When he's above half health, what he's likely to do is throw 3 firebombs at your side of the field that will land, leave a fire ring on the field that can do damage to begin with, but also crack the panel they land on. When he's below half health, he'll do his Napalm Bomb, where he'll pause there and a targeting reticle will go across the screen until it hits you, and then he'll fire it at you, which will then do a 3x3 explosion centered on you for mass damage. Important thing to note though, many of his attacks as well as he himself is fire elemental, so if you're a wood style, this can be a even harder fight, but if you're an aqua style, you could have a much easier time like I tend to, at least with the version 1 of this fight. Love this design though. Again, so many net Navi designs throughout these 6 games. Hit so good. I'd still say they're probably my favorite sets of character designs in the franchise, period.
Not bad. I see why Pharaoh Man bit it now. You got skills, boy. You must be the chosen one.
The chosen one? Ah, that's foreboding. Now we can head straight into World 3, Area 3. I think I could even finish it. But I want to go do some other stuff just to give a little break from this area so I can tackle these things one bit at a time. On top of that, I would like to get Napalmman's battleship just to have it. So for now, what we're going to do is actually go do some battleship trades I haven't done yet throughout the human world. Hi-ho, you're Electopian, no? I'm hearing many good chippies in Electopia. Do you carrying pop-up D? If so, would you change for blower P? Is A-okay-o? A-okay-o. Okay? Oh yeah, baby. Electopians are so generous. Netopians keep their promises. Here's my chip, s'il vous plaît. Blower P from memory is Twister, but fire elemental, and I don't tend to use it. Cool as hell chip art, though. Next up, we want to come to the departure area for the airport. I may look like this, but I'm a Netopian. Daddy's a Netopian. We moved here from Electopia last year. My boyfriend's coming to visit from Electopia. I want to get a gift for him to win his heart over. I was thinking getting him a chipset. He wanted Aqua Aura A, Fire Aura R, Wood Aura S, and Elec Aura L chips a while back. But I can't find them anywhere. If you have them, could you give them to me? I'll exchange them for an undershirt N. So how about it? Sure. You'll trade me? Wow, I'm so happy. I'm sure my boyfriend will be pleased too. Then our love will deepen. Oh, this is what you wanted, right? I almost forgot. Undershirt, it's not undershot, despite the fact I still call it that to myself to this day, is a defensive chip that would become a different ability type starting in the next game. That allows you to survive a fatal hit with 1 HP as long as you had more than 1 HP left. It's neat, but it doesn't really feel good to put into a folder. Also, I already have this battleship, but this particular chip trait here allows you to get a variable sword. I want to say even in the final chapter of the main game's plot, which can be pretty good. I already have one of those from Mr. Data, but I'll take 2 because that makes doing a program event I like to do much easier. Next up, we're going to head back to World 3 Area 2 and go after Napalmman V2. In order to get to him, you need to go to the 4th path here and then head straight north. Getting around this particular World 3 area is probably the hardest on a first-time run just because there's so many one-way panels, and if you mess up, you're just going to go back to the start, but if you know it, it's not too bad. So Napalmman V2, get this, is Napalmman, but more aggressive and harder. I almost actively went out of my way for fighting the V3 fight. Actively did make a different folder. I was considering making a Gutsman-centric folder with things like Geyser around to potentially take advantage of the water weakness, and I could recommend that, but ultimately the Gut Shoot Gator folder is just more efficient. And here's the thing. For multiplayer, of course, there's a bit of a different aspect to that, but Battle Network 2 is one of those games where there just is a definitive best folder because of how good Gator is. And they do better about balancing what the best stuff is in later entries. But in this game in particular, Gator is just disgusting. With that said, if there is one fallout that this particular folder has, it's that the individual attacks within it don't do as much damage as they could. This is where the other folder I built by the end of this video comes in handy because that is much better for overall damage per chip use. With or without program advances. Actually, it's probably better without program advances for virus battles at the least. This is the Napalm Bomb attack, by the way, I was mentioning, where he just homes in on you directly and fires a giant 3x3 explosive. If you're a wood-type style, that is an instant kill, but it gets pretty close at certain points. Like I mentioned, even though you can't control which element your style changes are in Battle Network 2 and 3, water and heat have probably some of the best advantages on the whole, and it sometimes is because of boss fights like this. Wood has some good stuff here and there, Elec not so much. Elec has genuinely only really like 1 W, and that's a... Actually, that's later in this very video, so we'll talk about it then. It involves a certain secret thing. And that's the Napalmman chip. I believe he spawns in and throws increasing amounts of bombs as you get higher amounts of levels that will break panels. And if they hit the target, good. If they don't, oh well. And now it's time to get V2 and V3. This particular next few moments is me grinding up the enemies I need for battle chips here in World 3 Area 2, and it's herein that the problem enemy can become a problem. With that said, compared to some other problem enemies like the Octovians, they are technically easier to get the battle chip from. It's just finding them that's the worst thing in the game. Napalmman V2, just Napalmman V1 but stronger. Time for us to get the Ratty 3 chip. And I actually don't show this because I wasn't recording at that time because it was between sessions. The green mystery data throughout the World 3 area in general are really good because they can either be really good codes of certain chips, like especially asterisk chips, or things like that. And during one of those trips in this area specifically, I ended up getting a Raton 3 asterisk. So I don't need all 5 codes of that for the Omega Raton 3 advance I'll be doing in a few moments. Mind you, I say that, but I think getting all 5 of the Raton 3 codes is the easiest out of all 3 levels of that chip. Because if memory serves, the Ratty 3s can drop all 5 of their codes. At any HP level, it's just entirely dependent on chance and your busting level. Which is pretty easy, especially if you consistently run into the 3 Ratty 3 battles throughout this area, which I think are the most common in the area. So, hey, good luck with that. With that said, before we get back to getting battle chips here in World 3 Area 2, we're going to jump over to ACDC/Den Area 1. I keep flip-flopping between those because they kind of flip-flop between them in the individual games. First off, Zeta Raton 3. 3 of any of the Raton 3 chips in alphabetical order, and you're good. For just random virus battles, especially with late-game grinding, this is probably my favorite of the Zeta-type program advances here in BN2. Same with the Omega Raton 3, considering the power that can throw out with the time you have. But again, there's just better things to do with your time and space, I think. Although Raton 3 on its own isn't a bad ship, because you can get some good stuff out of that. I just think you can get it only a little too late in. Which I think is the problem with some program advances to begin with, where they're still good for what remains. It's just that with the chip lines involved, you kind of wish you could have maybe gotten them earlier, usually, is the way I look at it. With that said, next up, LMN, ONP, and Order Omega Raton 3. It does what it says on the tin, 10 seconds invincibility, and you can spam Raton 3 as much as you can in that time frame. Decently powerful, better options. Right now, though, we're going to fight some poof balls. These are also in World 3 Area 2. I've already got their battle chip, but I actually now have the wrong code because of the code I got Anubis in last part. For a program advance, I now need Poison Face W rather than U. With that said, I should note, because this is the rest of the game in this video, this had more footage combined in it than even the first post-game video, which was by and large a giant chip grind did. Mostly because of some cases where viruses took several hours to show up, like the Pomper 3. This is the hardest enemy to find in the game. It is a less than 3% find here in World 3 Area 2, and it still has drop-down S, like in the last game, which we need not only for the chip library, but for a program advance. With that said, it's much easier to get in this game because, for one thing, Jealousy kills Pomper 3s instantly because they're always found with at least 2 poof balls. But also, if you find one and mess up with the chip, you can just use a locate enemy like I did, save, and then keep going and going until you find that enemy again and get the chip. While there still are problem chips to get in every game, the tools they give you in every successive entry really do make getting chips easier, even if some parts of their post-games get to still be pretty annoying. With that said, welcome to World 3 Area 3. You're going to be finding a lot of the Scuttle enemy lines around here, but there's one in particular that's especially annoying because you can find the peak of them here, Scuttlists. And there's a Navi plus 40 asterisk. It does what it says on the tin. It's a Navi plus 20, only it's a plus 40. I would recommend just putting that in your folder over a Navi plus 20 if you have one. Other enemies you can find around here are Mashis, which are the level 3 Mushies we found back at the gift shop in the airport on the way from Netopia. This is the only other area you can find them in the game. We're going to find the level 2 Mole enemy here. You can also find Snapper 3s and Yarts, the level 3 Yo-Yo enemy. A big thing as well, though, most of the Protectos you're going to find in your pathways in here are the level 2 variety, so the best way to take care of those is with the Big Bomb program advance. Behind this Purple Mystery Data is another grass stage, and there is one more Purple Mystery Data to go at the very end of this area. Here's a Scuttlist. So Scuttlists, they just have a laser attack. They will go into your row and fire it forward. It's essentially the same lasers that Pharaoh Man's coffins had. What makes them annoying is, for one thing, they have a life aura with 150 power, which also indicates they actively have the life aura 2 chip. The thing is, and I feel like I haven't been clear about this part, so I am going to say this outright. Auras are different than barriers. Barriers have a set HP count that always reduces with every single shot, especially in the later games when there's more than just the one barrier. Auras, you need to hit them with an attack of that strength for them to go away. So a life aura won't go away until you hit it with something that does exactly 100 or more damage. Taking care of Scuttlists alongside the other enemies, alongside with that aura, in any good way to get the life aura 2 chip can be a problem, admittedly. But that's why I have the later folder I'm going to be making relatively shortly for the rest of the chip grinding we have to do throughout the game. This is probably one of the harder encounters to get the life aura 2 battle chip from as well, because the Brushman will constantly be placing holy panels, which I believe those still do apply the half damage thing to auras as well, so be careful with that. But while it's doing that, it's also painting hazard tiles on your side of the screen, which can be kind of rough. That's the main thing that makes Brushman, I think 3 specifically, very different from Brushman 1 and 2, which I don't think I got to show off the first time we encountered them in that one side quest. Green mystery data here in World 3 Area 3 are very good, because while they have barrier asterisks, they can also just have full cust asterisks in case you don't have any already, which can be very handy. On top of that, something I should note, what makes part of the chip grinding around here very hellish? I implied it last time slightly. Battles around here are hard to run away from. You can never run away from a battle here in the World 3 areas on your first attempt. They will always take until the second or third attempt to do so. And in that regard, it can be pretty rough for the time investment to do chip grinding around here, because it's not like other areas where in case you don't get the battles you want, you can just run away immediately. You're required to put in some time no matter what. Bug frag right there. We're almost done with those. I think there's only one left to grab, and I've been able to grab it for a while. I just completely forgot I could jack into that computer. And here comes, I think, the last security cube. But first, it's time for Mole 2. Mole 2 has 800 HP. But thankfully, unlike Mole 1, it doesn't have a semi-stone body state that makes it take 1 damage at a time. You still do have to play whack-a-mole with it. I think you have only 10 hits before it goes away. But with your folder layout, by the time you get here, you can probably easily take care of 800 HP pretty quickly. I do think there is a max amount of HP it can take in one shot. Like somewhere about 200-ish damage, but with the program advances you probably have by now, it'll be fine. The big thing to note is it can also only be hit once per hit, so to speak. For instance, Gator, only the first hit of Gator will actively do damage to the mole viruses. So keep that in mind. I've always found the mole virus line funny because, like I mentioned, it is meant to be Rush. But it doesn't really get treated as Rush in any regard until, I think, starting at least in Battle Network 3 with a certain program type that you can apply to Mega Man. And outside of that, it's only until 6 that it actually gets named Rush. It's just kind of funny to me. With that said, whereas Mole 1's chip was a pop-up chip, you might think, okay, Mole 2 is probably a better version of that somehow, right? No. In fact, until you actually get the battle chip, you're probably not going to be able to predict what kind of battle chip Mole 2 gives. Also, area grabs can be very handy here because it reduces the amount of tiles you have to really move around to. For beating a Mole 2, you get Meteor 18, which is a better version of the Meteor 12 line battle chip. Weird. Right, there's the final sub memory, so now you can hold as many sub chips as you can maximum. Save right here in particular, especially if you don't have certain chips in your folder, because it's time for the only Protecto 3s in the game. 620 HP is a very specific number to take out in one shot because you specifically need Life Sword 3 and at least 2 attack plus 10s to damage them outright. Or an attack plus 20 or an attack plus 30. Thankfully, by the time you get here, you probably have that already. And here is the final purple mystery data in the game. Anti-Navi-X, a counter chip that will prevent multiplayer enemies and otherwise from using Navi chips. It's powerful, but again, multiplayer only, so if you're only here for the main story and completion, you're not going to get much use out of it. You who have passed 3 trials, I honor you. This door does not open until you have 200 battle chips in your library. Now, the final door shall open. The final door opened. Lan, there's nothing here. Well then, what was that final door thing all about?
Everything up till now has been a test.
A test? You were testing me?
Yes,
and you have passed that test brilliantly. You are the chosen one.
The Chosen One?
You have won a seat among the future rulers of the net. You may join us. You may join World 3. With your skills, you should rank up the ranks, really.
World 3?
Correct. This is the new headquarters of the restored World 3. And leading the restoration of our proud World 3 is I, inheritor of this land's great power, Planet Man. And your first act in this, the dawn of the World 3 era, will be to destroy the net and take control of the entire world.
What? Not while I'm around, you don't.
My, have you no ambition? You show such promise, it seems a shame.
I won't let you get away with this.
I'm afraid you don't have a choice, or if you don't join us, you will be destroyed. A fitting, if regrettable sacrifice to the glory of World 3.
Mega Man, we can't lose this one. We won't. Let's rock. Battle routine set. Execute. Planet Man is a tanky dude. He has the most HP in any of his forms of any boss fight in the game. And for that aspect, he can be kind of rough to take care of. Also helping that is his field setup. The center tile of your field's missing, so you can't stand there and throw bombs at him for easy shots. On top of that, he's on the only panel on his field that can be stood on. So you can't stand in front of him to use swords besides longsword type things, and you can't use navies that require going in front of their target like Proto Man. Program advances go a long way here. Attack-wise, he actually has more than most bosses because of the somewhat random element of this fight. The planets that rotate around him, they are color-coded to the elements. It can be destroyed by their element's weakness. Like the yellow planet there is an elect planet, it can be destroyed with wood attacks. The water one right there that's blue can be destroyed with elect attacks, for instance. If you destroy both planets he has out, he will use a double planet attack that will just spawn in 2 new ones. It's one of the few actual boss navies that has a screen dimming attack like that. Otherwise, he has a little defense fighter that will spawn in and shoot you here and there. As for what the individual planets do, the elect planet fires a slow-moving zap ring across a row. The water planet will send water towers down a row. The fire planet will send fire towers down the row. And I think that's actually it. I don't think there actually is a wood planet now that I think about it. Otherwise, his last attack is this, Meteorite. He will basically have a wind effect go in that'll suck you towards the far right side of your arena, and meteorites will come in from the left side that are honestly kind of hard to dodge. This fight can be rough depending on your folder setup, I will not lie, and he does do some decent damage, but ultimately, if you got this far, you probably have enough saved up in your folder to make something that can make this guy go down pretty quickly. That's that, though. 2 games in a row, World 3 has been taken down a notch.
Even if you have defeated me, somewhere, sometime, somehow, World 3 will rise again.
Man, those World 3 guys just won't stay down, will they? If they won't stay down on their own, we'll put them down. They can pop up all they want as long as we're here. You're right, Lan. Oh man, I'm hungry. Some things never change. Ready to jack out? I guess. But wait, wasn't this area a no jack out zone? You're right, we'll have to go back the way we came. Righto. And this here is the only reason this area is a no jack out zone to my knowledge, besides just the actual challenge of it because of the tough enemies. Might as well show the jaunt out as well, it's relatively peaceful. I'm actually not sure thinking about it though, because I seldom buy them here in BN2. But I'm not sure how effective sneak runs are in areas like this. Because a strategy I don't think I've brought up yet in this LP is that I believe because usually V3 navies are stronger than most enemies in an area, you can use a sneak run to make them more likely to show up and then use locate enemies as well. But when you're going for other battleships anyway, you might as well not use that. Also, if you have any sub-chips, I recommend using them right about now. And also, I finally built the third chip folder I've been talking about for a little bit here, the B and S coded one, largely with Proto Man, the B coded swords, and the Shadow Man program advance I'm going to be using. I also have the Big Bomb and Guardiano in there just to have some extra splash damage on top of helping clear out the folder potentially. Save right about here, because we're in for one more fight. Mega Man, what is it? Lan, I'm not entirely sure, but I sense a tremendous power. And it's coming this way. What is it? Powerful. Oppressive. It's really close. What's going on? Mega Man! Didn't we beat that Navi back in Kotobuki Town? Lan, this Navi looks the same as the one we beat. But I've never faced anything that felt this powerful. This one blows the last one away. Totally away. You want to Planet Man's cronies? Don't class me with those deluded weaklings. Well then, what the heck are you? Base. I roam the cyberworld and fight the strong. He means business. I've never felt this much hate before. I know. I can feel it through my PET. Yes. You are strong. You are worthy opponents. Indeed. Such worthy opponents are far and few between. Yes. I'm looking forward to this very much. Heads up, Lan. Here he comes. I'm ready. Battle routine set. Execute. Now, my worthy foes, you shall learn the joy that is battle. The real Base does not mess around. He actively has a life aura active at most times, so you need chips that do over 100 damage to begin with to be able to damage him. On top of that, if you leave him alone long enough after you take it out, he will regenerate it. So the strategy here is to do damage and do it quickly. If you stun him with stuff, he does reset his timer on regenning it, I believe, which can be pretty handy. Attack-wise, though, he'll get into your row and fire his busters. He'll charge up his busters and do a buster rake that will just go down all 3 rows of the field. That's pretty hard to get around, even though it's possible to get around just by moving. I believe he can also slam down and hit your row, but I might be thinking of something else while we're doing this part, so a little rough on that. A good shortcut you can have here, though, is having a gut style. Which I went over what that was by and large when I was talking about the style changes. That's the one that requires a lot of like buster uses and all that. Because a fully leveled up Gut Styles charge shot does 100 damage by default, so that's an easy way to get rid of the life aura. Variable Sword also helps a lot here. Something else that helps a lot is Custom Sword B, Variable Sword B, and any of the Proto Man ships. This becomes one of my favorite program advances in the series. It's stylized as 2X Hero. I've heard it called Double Hero and Do Hero, but I do believe it's meant to be Double Hero because Do Hero is a separate program advance in 3. Proto Man shows up, and him and Mega Man go hog wild on the entire enemy side of the field for about 700-ish damage. Love that a lot. Good coverage, and it being a screen-dimming program advance means it's great for S ranks. And here we got the other best program advance in the game, Dropdown S, Anti-Damage S, and any of the Shadow Man ships. This one is the game breaker outside of Gator. This is Bodyguard. You use it, Shadow Man spawns in front of you, and then rains down about 18 shurikens, each doing 100 damage on enemies. It stun locks the hell out of bosses. It's ridiculously powerful. Honestly, I am surprised that a Navi outside the cyber world could even wound me. Next time, I might even really try fighting you. We shall meet again, my worthy opponent. What was that guy? Base, wandering the cyber world, fighting the strong. Hey, why the face? At least this means we're the strong. We're unbeatable, and no evil Navi can prove different. Right on. Congratulations! You are an ultimate net battler. That's the end of the post-game story. There's still some chips to grab, but as a nice little reward, you get a little bit of a look back at your first fight of all the main bosses in the game. Both the time and the busting level is shown. And what's really funny about this is no matter what playthrough you watch, unless someone's really good at getting S ranks from the start, you really get to see when someone really gets a good folder together and starts getting consistent like 9, 10s, and S's on bosses. For instance, around my playthroughs, it's usually about Cutman I do well, but Shadowman is where it really starts here, except for Thunderman, because that fight sucks. I do wish you could like press select on any of these to get more detailed results on what makes rankings happen, so in the case you wanted to figure out that information behind the scenes, the game could just tell you how rankings work a little better. But at least nowadays, the fan base basically figured that out by pure math anyway, so you don't need to worry about that too much. And it all ends with real base. And now we get pretty detailed results on our entire main playthrough up to this point. Our playtime, the amount of battles, the amount of viruses we defeated, the amount of times you ran away, I ran a lot off screen if you can't tell, your total library, and how many program advances you've done. Overall, not a bad playthrough for me. But this video is only half over for a reason. That said 239, now 240 out of the library chips gotten. We still have some stuff to get. Base F is the air rake he does with his buster. It fires various shots randomly down the 3 rows of the screen, each doing the set damage. And for beating base, we now have a second green completion star on the title screen. Battle Network 1 only had the 1 completion star, as did Operate Shooting Star, but moving forward in the series, they add more completion marks for how much you've done on the title screen throughout. And since we're so close to another, let's go back to the den area and get that last program advance done. And we actually have had all the stuff for it for a little bit now. It requires Poison Mask, Poison Face, and Anubis of the same code. Usually U or W are the 2 you can do for this. This is kind of a fun one. This is Poison Pharaoh. It spawns a purple Pharaoh Man in front of you that will then just poison the enemy's area and sap their HP very quickly. It can be destroyed though, so be careful of that. There are some strategies where you place a holy panel in front of that, place that down, then put a life aura on, and then just let the HP drain from everything around you. And if we reset after doing that, we now have the blue completion star. 2 more stars to go, although if you're playing along, I only recommend getting the next star. And to do that, we just need to get the rest of the battle chips. And for one of those battle chips, I need to go get the last bug frag, which was here in our own house the entire time. I forget when you could first jack into this. It had to at least be like the Okuden scenario. It's been right here all along. I had a moment towards the end of the recording where I'm like, I'm missing one. Where is it? Oh no. But now that we have that, we can get Zeus Hammer Z. Zeus Hammer is 200 power that hits every panel, including the one you're on, for damage. So it damages yourself unless you're using something like Invis, which can be kind of annoying, but it is powerful. Next up, we want to come over back to World 3, Area 3, because we now need to fight Planet Man V2 rather, wrong, P-Man. He's over here right where we found the grass stage. Remember how I said Planet Man gets a lot of HP? Yeah, we're rivaling Gospel Virus Beast numbers here now. Also, I've done several pauses to do some more research throughout this video already. And I apparently was wrong earlier. Apparently Planet Man does have a wood planet. It's just that it only shows up on higher versions usually, and when he's lower on HP. And I want to say it probably does wood towers if I had to guess. Now, the main thing that the later 2 Planet Man versions get is their attacks are faster, and the planets orbit faster. And the annoying thing about the planets with some setups is they can block your buster shots as well, but that's where things like the Heat Styles Flamethrower, the Bubbler of the Water Styles, and all that can come in pretty good handy. Wood Style honestly has a real shit fight here because of its charge attack range. But ultimately, it's not too bad. I just kind of wish I liked Planet Man's chip more. Not that it's bad. I just don't like the P code myself, and by the time you get here, you probably already have better setups anyway. But I'm assuming there's probably some good ways you can use it in a multiplayer specifically. The way it works is that Planet Man hones in on the nearest enemy and targets them. Then, assuming there's space for them, one of each of the planets will spawn above, below, to the left, and to the right of the opponent, and they will all hone in at the same time, doing 4 times the listed damage. Now, the reason I say if there's space for them, for memory, if there's something blocking that panel, like the panel doesn't exist, like they're on the top or bottom of the field or on the far right, or if there's a rock cube or a rock in the way, it just won't show up there from memory. So it can be kinda unwieldy in that regard, especially in Navi battles. But it's fine. For now, it's time for me to get another battle chip, because here's the Snapper 3s. Snapper 3s, I want to say the Snappers actively get a little more aggressive with when they'll use their kunai attacks with the higher variants. But because of this particular setup, where it's 250 HP, if you have fire damage, like Heatman especially, is very good here. Or a double hero, that does well as well. That's that battle chip down. Next up, let's get ourselves a Yo-Yo 3. Any given Yart battle is good here. You don't even need to get particularly good ranks for it from memory. Yo-Yo 3 is great. I just wish you could get it earlier in the game, because I think it'd be very useful in post-game, but you really can't get it up to this point. Next up, let's get ourselves the Life Aura 2 chip. Just do pretty well against a Scuttlist. With that said, it can be pretty easy to accidentally get the wrong chip when doing that, because every Scuttlist, I think, is paired with another Scuttle virus. It's very easy to just accidentally get the Life Aura 1 chip from there instead. And as you saw a moment ago, Planet Man 3's healthy. 2200 HP more than the final boss had. That's the most of any enemy in the game, period, even. And now we just need to get the other Planet Man chip, and then we're by and large done with the chip grind here. Thankfully, most of the chips that are remaining were just in World 3 Area 3 itself, which I've heard is also called Secret Area 3, but it's World 3 area on the pause screen. They don't shy away from that whatsoever. Before we go out to the next battle chips, though, let's head back to AC/DC Town, because for one thing, I can show off, this is actually, I think in post-games, the only time you can really find Miss Mario walking around. She has much more of a role in other games, of course. We want to talk to this girl, though. I can see the ghosts of the level 3 navis you deleted at busting level S. The ghosts I can see now are Airman, Gutsman, Toadman, Quickman, Gateman, Cutman, Shadowman, Thunderman, Snakeman, Protoman, Nightman, Magnetman, Heatman, Freezeman, Pharaohman, Napalmman, Planetman. That is all. It seems all the ghosts visible to me are present. May the changes that visit you be changes for the better. That triggers your next style change to be something relatively unique, but we'll show that off later this video. For now, since we have 247 out of 250 battle chips in the library, we want to come over here to the Undersquares board. If you read this, you'll be deleted. Grave, War, Space. Then he will appear. Then the truly powerful one will take all. What that's essentially saying is in order to get the final 3 battle chips, you need to get 247 out of 50 and then go back to World 3 Area 3. The enemy that holds those will now be a random encounter in that area. So let's go around and find them. Sneak Run can help with this from memory, but in my eyes, it's a relatively common encounter compared to a lot of other fights like this. And it's sort of a repeat from BN1, because who had the last battle chips in Battle Network 1? Base is back, and it's Base Deluxe. He's more aggressive, and he now has a life aura that takes 150 damage. This can be a fight less for the HP total, more for that aura and the fact he can regenerate it so quickly. Something that does help a lot here, admittedly, is Bodyguard, for one thing, because if you use Bodyguard with a plus 20 and plus 30, it'll take care of his HP and a life aura no problem. But also, Poison Pharaoh can be pretty good for this fight, even though you'll get a lower rating using it because of how long it takes, because things like that will pierce through the aura and still sap his HP. He is in control of 3 separate battle chips, though, so you need to do really well to get the lowest level chip he has, and then both get at least 2 S ranks to get the other 2 chips, which can be kind of annoying. So let's talk about a little funny anecdote. So, of course, at the end of the post-game story, you fight the real base on the way out of World 3 Area 1. And you can't jack out of World 3 Area, so you're locked into that fight, right? Sort of. Remember that World 3 Area 1 has 3 exits. The one that leads to World 3 Area 2, the one where you fight base that leads to Undernet 4, but then there's the one that leads to where the army data was in Den Area 1 right near Lan's PC. If you go through that exit, you can jack out there and skip the base fight. Not permanently, he will still be there when you re-enter. But in the case you know that he's there and you're lower on resources or HP or all that and you want to be ready for him, you can just use that exit leave and he'll be here waiting for you, which can be kind of nice. I do appreciate base sort of being the post-game superboss figure throughout the series, honestly. Because while he wasn't in that many classic games, Base's presence was always just sort of a better rival for Mega Man than Proto Man could ever be. So them doing this, even if it was originally a secret in BN1, I think is really neat. With that said, not my favorite fight against him. That's one of the later ones, I'll tell you that much. Mind you, it helps that bodyguard kind of makes this fight a non-issue. You saw his one new attack, though. It's where he slams the ground. That's Base V2, but we still have to get 2 other chips for him. Base V3, as well as his other battle chip. Thankfully, as long as your folder flows together properly, getting an S rank in this fight isn't too bad. The hardest part at that point is probably just doing the avoidance game rather than actually doing the damage to him and yourself. But still, be careful. Locate enemies on top of full energies are going to help you a lot in this area for this. There's his final battle chip, Life Aura 3. Notably and thankfully, not the Life Aura he's using himself. He's using a Life Aura 2. Life Aura 3 will protect the user from any damage that does less than 200 in one shot. Which admittedly, with the post-game bosses, there are a number that can do that much on top of the final boss himself, I believe. But still, for multiplayer, that's going to do real good for you. And here's Base 3, notably coded X, so it's kind of hard to work with. If that was coded F, it would be kind of ridiculous. But now we're at 250 out of 250 in our library. We have every chip in the game, sort of. This is a complete library. It feels good to have. The chip grind was worth it, and after I showcase this full library, if you soft reset the game, you now have another completion star. Also, we have every program advanced done as well. Sort of, again. We'll talk more about that in a few moments. So soft reset, and we now have the blue star. So we have every battle chip. For the next thing, we're gonna do some off-screen grinding and come over to ACDC/Den Area 2 to fight some standard, pretty easy enemies. I was grinding these off-screen for a little bit because I mentioned that girl procs something with your next style change. So, let's take a look at what this is. What's this? A style change? It must be. But what style? Looks like a new style has evolved, but what? Your synchro rate's 200%! Mega Man, is this? Yeah, I can feel it, just like before. It is. What is it, Dad? During battles with strong navies with a continuously full synchro state, Mega Man's subconscious runs hub.batch, which was supposed to be switched off before. Call it hub style. Mega Man's probably very powerful now, but his body is in worse shape with 50% of the usual hit points. So he does a lot of damage, but is weak. It's up to you, Lan. Lan, use all your operating skills. Hub style. Cool. We're unbeatable. Wait, listen well, Lan. Mega Man's memory can only hold info for up to 2 styles. Mega Man already has acquired 2 styles. To learn another style, Mega Man will have to overwrite a current style. This will give you a new style, but you'll also lose an old one. Overwrite? Absolutely. I never used Teach Child at all after I got it. Okay, now Mega Man has a new power. Thanks, Dad. Let's go, Mega Man. Okay, Lan. So you really want to get this, because Hub Style is very good. It halves your current HP from its max, but it applies basically all 4 of the style changes into one body in boosted ways, even. With that said, The next time you get a style change after this, you can overwrite hub style. Don't. You can only get this once per save file. If you overwrite it, you can never get it again. If you're used to hub style looking green and flashy, that's from the manga, which I think is the better design ultimately, but I doubt they could probably pull that off in the GBA's color palette limitations, honestly. Also notably, in the network menu, there's an option to trade styles. You can, in the GBA versions at least, trade away hub style, so be careful with that. For now though, let's jack out and learn about hub style's actual intricacies. Hub style info. Hub style allows Megaman to use all his latent power. Essentially, every style's abilities can be used. Buster's double buster attack. You can choose from 10 chips in the custom screen. You can carry 8 Navi chips per folder. Kind of weird they didn't mark Navi there properly. You have a barrier, and during battle you can use a shield to guard attacks by pressing B and then the left arrow. However, Mega Man's body can't fully take the power, so his hit points are reduced to half. This is absurd. Hub style is a style full of strength and versatility. It all depends on how you handle the routine land. It's neat, and honestly it is a nice power trip, but it really is mostly used in multiplayer. Speaking of which, let's do some net battles. I have a copy of my save file open in a separate version of the emulator I've used to record this, so I can net battle against myself. You might be wondering, why would I do this? There's no real reason to. For one thing, I could talk about how multiplayer works. It's pretty much just the actual battles in the game, but any player can proc off the custom screen, so you can even interrupt enemies' attacks by doing that. On top of that, there are some chips that are just better used here and on the whole, like Jealousy, Anti-Navi, Anti-Traps to begin with, all that jazz. But you might have noticed on the title screen we had 4 completion stars. I earlier mentioned there's 5. On top of that, 4 would just be a weird number to have. There are 10 secret battle chips locked to multiplayer. Because when you're doing network battles against another player, the winner actively steals a chip from the loser's loose pack. The rarity of that chip on a 1 to 5 star ranking as seen on the library depends on your in-battle ranking. At a level 1, you steal a 1-star chip. Level 2 and 3, the same thing. Level 4, a 1 star is a 50%, a 2 stars is a 50%. Level 5, a 2 stars of 50, a 3 stars of 50. Level 6, 3 stars 100%. Level 7, 3 is 50, 4 is 50. Level 8, 4 is 100%. Level 9, 4 is 93-ish%, 5 is 6-ish%. At a rank 10, it is a 50-50 between a 4 and 5 star chip. At level S, it is a guarantee of an S rank chip. Unless the player you're stealing from has run out of a certain rarity of chip, in which case it'll go down by 1 and check again until chips are found. The game will choose whichever code a player has in their pack at equal weight, no matter how many copies of that code they have. So in the case you have, say, 20 Canon A's but 1 Canon B, it is still a 50-50 which one the game will take. Now, as to how the secret chips factor into that, both players need to have at least 3 completion stars on the title screen. Then, if the winner wins the game with a rank S, there is a 1 in 16 chance the winner will receive one of the 10 secret chips in any of their 4 to 5 codes. If that happens, the loser loses no chips. The Legacy Collection actively changed this a little bit in that only the winner needed to have 3 completion stars, which I think is ultimately for the better. The code you get of a secret chip is random chance, so if you're trying to get specific codes, it can be kind of rough. But thankfully, the Legacy Collection's chip trade option probably makes this a little easier to do nowadays than it was on the GBA. With that said, I've talked about this briefly before in the LP, I think. The Wii U Virtual Console release had the easiest method of getting these, because you couldn't use the network option properly in the Wii U Virtual Console, of course. So, the way you got these was by accessing the network menu and saving. You would then have every multiplayer-focused chip like these that any of the Battle Network games had to offer in each entry, which makes 100%ing these games the easiest in the Wii U Virtual Console release. As for the chips and their codes, they are Big Red Wave FHPRS, FreezeMom AIJQU, Sparker CEGKV, Gaiasaur DLNWY, Black Bomb BFGPR, Fighter Sword AILSY*, Night Sword FJKMQ, Hero Sword ENOT, Meteors BHORV, and Poltergeist PRUW. In the Legacy Collection, there's also a Poltergeist E you can grab because of some RNG changes. Similarly, there is a Hero Sword Z in the code, but it remains inaccessible to this day through legitimate and official means. Getting these is a grind, and I remember there were a lot of theories about algorithms favoring pattern breaks, so to speak, where if you played matches in certain ways and then broke that pattern after a few matches, like you took more steps on a match, or you took more damage in a match, or you did it in fewer or more turns, you would be more likely to get a secret chip. From my research, that doesn't seem to be the case at all. I'm assuming it's a matter of, like, placebo effect, people thinking it's the case, but it might not be. But if it's there, I guess I could still recommend playing them that way. There's my first of the 10 chips, Fighter Sword S. Care to guess how many battles this took to show up? Because of the luck of the draw, it can be your first battle, it can be your 20th. This takes a while, no matter what. It can take 100 battles, it could take more. But eventually, luck of the draw, you will probably get them all. The annoying thing is, since there's multiple codes, that means you can get multiples of a chip. You could spend 3 hours here and probably get only like 5 copies of one of the same chip. Which, for folder building reasons could be nice, but for completionist reasons, sucks. The moment you get your first secret chip, the library gets boosted to 260, and here are the 10 chips. Big Red Wave can only be used by Heat Style, Freeze Bomb by Aqua Style, Sparker by Elect Style, and Gaia Blade by Wood Styles, by the way. Big Red Wave sends a wave down every row that does heavy fire damage. Ice Bomb throws a bomb that will then cause a plus sign of ice towers that can completely freeze enemies. Sparker, you hold the button to sacrifice HP to make it stronger, but you're completely invulnerable while you're charging, so it can be pretty powerful. It's the one win the Elect Styles really get. Gaia Sword's a wide sword that adds the attack of any chips selected after it to its attack value, which is also pretty cool. It does treat those chips as attack pluses, though. You still can't use them. Black Bomb is the bomb from the bomb networks that was just in the field. If it hits a fire attack, it explodes the entire field for 200 damage. Fighter, Knight, and Hero Sword are essentially sequel chips to each other. They are longer long swords. They reach 3 panels ahead and do increasing damages of 100, 150, and 200. They're cool, but I think they were better in BN1 on the whole, partially because they were tied to some program advances. Notably as well, those 3 sword chips can only be used by normal style, which is a little unique. Meteors freezes time and makes 30 meteors land on the enemy area, hitting more or less every panel 3 times, but I think 2 or 3 get hit 4 times instead. And Poltergeist picks up any obstacle in the field, rock cube, rocks, anything like that, and throws them at the nearest enemy for 200 damage a pop. That one can be pretty powerful if you spam rock cube asterisks in a folder especially. These chips are neat, but they are not worth potentially sitting through upwards of 342 battles or more. Thankfully, any multiplayer-focused chips in the future weren't nearly as random to get. And that gives us all 5 completion stars on the title screen. But before we do the next major thing to note, there are actually a few other battle chips we need to talk about that are in the game's code, but barring the Wii U Virtual Consoles changes, I think the Card System and Legacy Collection are inobtainable in the GBA version through any normal means, because they were given out at tournaments and events like Gateman SP here. This is a Gateman Navi chip that actually uses his cannon attack for a solid 300 damage straight to the face. These are not counted for completion whatsoever. They're not even counted in the library. These are just neat little bonuses. Since they're unobtainable normally, though, I am using GameShark codes just to get these and show them off so I can say I showed off every battleship in the game in some form. Next up are the Gospel chips. There are 4 of these. They're actually the remaining 4 super secret chips given out at events. They are Fire, Aqua, Elect, and Wood Gospel. They all do the same effect, just in a different element. The Gospel Beast shows up and breathes Elemental Fire. That damages the panel in front of it and then the first 2 columns of the enemy side of the field. Now, these are interesting in that while they're all samey, they are actually tied to something pretty unique that's not marked in the game for 100% whatsoever. And that's why I'm actually going out of my way to show this off, because they actually tie into that one thing. I am going to try to show chips like this in all of the future games, including like e-reader card chips here and there. But again, that's a try. I might not be able to. We'll see how it goes as we go through. And again, they're not counted in the library. Poltergeist is where the library ends. So now for the cool thing. I'm here in an Airman v3 battle because the Gospel chips are actually tied to a program advance. It uses any of the 4 of them, you just need 1 of them. The only sour note is, while this program advance is cool, it requires going through the entire post-game to do. so this is just for super completionists who happen to have one of the gospel chips. In order to do this program advance, you need Anti-Navi-X and Base V3 as well. In order, it is, I believe, Base V3, Anti-Navi, and then either of the 4 gospel chips. This is the absurdly damage-valued Darkness program advance. 3,000 damage. The way this works, the 2 chips are essentially combined. Gospel shows up, does the breath attack, and then Base will home in on the nearest enemy and do the column slam, again doing 3,000 damage. It's absurd. If you want, I guess, have a fun time, hack these in at the start and just use this the entire game. I wouldn't really recommend it though, it's just kind of a neat thing that's there. Unlike the other 5 secret chips though, what's a little unique about this program advance is that once you've actually done it, it does get marked in the PA memo. It's just not needed for the star, thankfully. And that's largely everything we can do in the game. There's only really one thing left to talk about. And to do it, we need to head back to the title screen. While on the title screen, when you have all 5 completion stars on the continue thing, highlight new game and press left, left, right, left, right, left, right, right on the D-pad, new game will then turn orange. Select this, and welcome to hard mode. So, some immediate differences about hard mode, you can't access the network screen at all. So let's save instead. Save your game? Sure, this will erase any old save data, okay? Yeah! Now you might think, oh my god, you idiot, why? Relax. Continue hard is now an option. Battle Network 2 is the only battle network on the GBA to have 2 separate save files for something like this. Similarly to Pokemon, I kind of found this weird as a kid when I found out about this because I always figured these should have had multiple save files, but the amount of data one save file has in these is kind of ridiculous, so I get why. Hard mode is by and large a numbers buff, as you can see here with the Metars. They now have 60 HP. So the brass tacks changes to hard mode. Enemies now have 50% more HP except for Base Deluxe, whose HP is unaltered. This actually presents an issue with the Mole 1 virus because it now has 15 HP but can only be attacked 10 times, so you need to use Whirlpool or Black Hole to kill it. Any damage done to Megaman is also increased 50%. This includes attacks like Zeus Hammer where you damage yourself. You can't access the network menu. The only thing you can do that involves another Battle Network cartridge is the Retro Chip Traders. And a lot of the mandatory boss fights, or not boss fights, virus battles throughout the game have been changed up to be harder. For instance, when you're going for a B license in the main game's plot, in the normal mode you fought 2 Metars, 2 Canodums, 3 Metars, 3 Canodums, 3 Bunnies in a row for 5 battles. Now when you go for it, it's 2 Metar 2s and a Metar 2, a Canodum, and a Bunny, 2 Flamies and a Metar, a Fishy B-Tank and Brushman, and 3 Handies. The fights do get pretty devious, though notably, if memory serves, the ice battles in the Freeze-Man scenario are completely unchanged. You, by and large, can do anything in hard mode you can do in normal mode with the exception of getting the secret chips because you can't use the network option. So you can theoretically get the first 4 completion stars, they just won't display. It is a numbers game, and by the time you have things like Gospel or Planet Man V3 having upwards of 3,000 plus HP, it can be a nightmare to melt through. But it starts harder than it ends, especially if you already know good folders because you've done 100% in the main game to get to here. My best advice, even if you didn't like doing it during the main game, hard mode is the time to make a Gator folder. 5 portions of that, on top of maybe getting some good Proto Man and stuff in there, it is great for this file. With that said, I'm not showcasing all of hard mode because I've already done the main LP completely. Why would I need to do that? Let's just move on to the credits and... Gate Man, what are you doing? Oh. Well, thanks, Gate Man. Saved me some time there. So I did play through all of hard mode off screen, and just to showcase, this actually didn't take me as long as the main LP, because while the numbers are higher, Gator's ridiculous. This is actually about how long a normal casual playthrough is for this for me, where I don't actively go after all the battle chips. And if you beat hard mode, you get this adorable image. I actively didn't know about this until I did this recording. I thought it was Battle Network 3 that started doing this. Thank you for your super play indeed. Now, this image isn't all you get for beating hard mode. If we now check our normal mode file and check the top of our pack, they've added a final battle chip. Sanctuary. One of the 5 codes this comes in is added at complete random to your folder, A, C, E, L, or S. If you want one of the other ones, you're out of luck. You're going to have to trade with someone else or do some hacking. Sanctuary is a holy panel on every panel on your side of the field. So this can be great for defensive stuff, especially in multiplayer, especially considering if you've gotten this, multiplayer's all the game has left for you at this point, because you've done everything in the game at this point. It's neat. I'm glad there's a reward. I do think this chip is better in later games when you get it much earlier in the post-game or campaigns. So now, let's just do a bit of a victory lap against Base and the Grave Virus Beast, or Gospel Virus Beast rather. Grave Virus Beast is what that thing was called in the anime's dub, with our Endgame BS folder. I did this exact same thing back with the Life Virus in my Operate Star Force LP. Sort of as a pattern setter, admittedly, because starting even in the next entry, upon getting 100% in everything else, they actively make the final boss stronger as a final challenge. So this is just me doing that, albeit it's more of a power trip in this case. I almost made this the hard mode final bosses instead, but I think this is more visually interesting because that was just me spamming through my folder as fast as I could to get to more Gators. And by this point, if you haven't liked me using Gator, you're probably sick of seeing that anyway. Something I should note though, there is a nice strategy you can do that's kind of funny in this fight. I mentioned in the main final boss that they fixed the Japanese version's weird exploit with Prism and Tree Bomb that completely deletes this final boss in like less than a second. But you can still do some funny stuff with Prism in this fight, namely by throwing it when you're in the top left or bottom left of your field, and then using Variable Sword into it, because that damage will pierce through the Virus Beast's guard and just do absurd damage very quickly. Battle Network 2 is a game that can still be absurdly busted if you experiment around with what interacts with what in what ways. It's just a matter of actively doing that and having the chips for it, which on a first playthrough, you're not gonna do. On top of that, there are games I really like breaking, but there are games I like breaking to a point. If I feel like the game can't put up a fight in some cases anymore, I'm not gonna have as much fun, hence why I went with only a single Gator in my folder the entire campaign, and look how much that still melted a lot of the bosses throughout it. Also, I believe you saw it earlier in this exact fight, something I forgot to mention about the Punch Program Advance that's pretty key about it. It can pierce through stone bodies and guards, so it can damage like the Virus Beast, Dominards, Poof Balls, no problem. So that's an even better Program Advance than I said it was. Whoops. If you got that, use it. Buy those cold punches as soon as you can at Yumland. It is a little weird though. Battle Network 2 was the first game of this series I LP'd on the channel years back. And the way I changed in my efforts throughout the years really shows in these LPs in particular, because I didn't do the post-game back one because I didn't see there was a point in it. And I even like game sharked in a lot of my battle chips by the end, if memory serves, because I didn't feel like doing chip grinding for chips I needed for side quests or main story or all that. I did say I was being fair to the game by waiting until a virus showed up to add their battle chips like with the high cannons or mega cannons. But no, this time I did it for real. On an emulator, still sure, but still, that's game. That's Battle Network 2 in its entirety. I mentioned it during the main campaign. I adore this game. It's the one I had the most growing up. I played it first, and it's the reason I stuck with the series. I still think its campaign is strong, barring the occasional weird moment here and there like the Freeze Man scenario. But I won't lie, the post-game is still a bit of a drag here. With that said, it is one of my favorite post-games in the series still all the same, because While things like the secret chips completely suck and I hate them, and there's some battleships that take way too long to get because of either the specificity or the rarity of the viruses, I appreciate this post-game for having a lot of new stuff along the way thanks to how the World 3 area is structured compared to BN1's post-game, while also not having a lot of extra steps that overcomplicate things along the way, because I do think some of the games in the series get to that point with their post-games. In particular, the next 2 or 3 entries are very bad about that, especially the next one. I appreciate this post-game for being upfront about what it is, and just being that grind with some cool stuff along the way. I think the only post-game I like more than this is 6's, because I think 6 does interesting stuff with little nonsense as well. On top of that, I think it just has easier to get things because of the advancements the series made for getting battleships along the way and all that jazz. And to the credit, with all the nonsense some of the later post-games have, there are ways to make things easier still, like ways to guarantee battleships at the end of the battle, ways to guarantee Zenny, so you can make those grinds easier. But if there's a post-game, I'll be like, yeah, it's annoying, but I don't mind doing it. It's this and 6. With that said, this LP's done. Again, I'm really sorry these videos took so long to come out. I'm trying to do catch-up still. 390 subs was a while ago. We're in the middle 510s at the moment. Thank you so much. I cannot begin to describe the amount of work I put into this LP the past, 3 weeks alone, 4 weeks. And I'm very proud to have done it. Battle Network 3 is probably up next, but I actually might throw in a last-minute wrench and go, no, let's just do network transmission now as the celebratory thing instead. I do want to do the Star Force games as well, but like Operate Star Force, I think I'm going to do those as normal LPs rather than celebratory, because I haven't done them yet. There's my final end stats. Those numbers are a little fudged, because when I was running around looking for certain viruses for Locate Enemy, I was using the fast forward key and all that, but I'd say the more accurate time there is probably 40 hours, 36 to 40 hours, I think is the actual number there. It's a lot, considering we finished the main campaign at exactly 15, but I don't mind it, even with the annoyances. But with that, I'm going to end this off here. Again, thank you so much for sticking with me. Thank you so much for 390 subs. Thank you for 500. Thank you for everyone stopping in. And I'll see you guys next celebratory Let's Play, whatever it might be. Hope you've been enjoying Pokemon Ranger, just to kind of date this video when it's going up. And I'll see you guys at 400 sub special. See you guys then.